The peace of this Advent season be upon you. I've included two pictures today with this meditation, both of them from the beautiful country of Lebanon. 4 months ago today, on August 4th, there was an enormous explosion in Beirut. That's the upper picture there that you have, which flattened so many homes, left 300,000 people homeless, killed hundreds of people, and it's a catastrophe that is the largest explosion ever to occur apart from a nuclear bomb. I bring up this issue of Beirut and Lebanon, the city that's been destroyed, the picture of that, and then also the beautiful image of the mountains of Lebanon, which it's most noted for, and the cedars of Lebanon, which are spoken of so frequently in the scriptures. I bring this all up because today, in our first reading, we are invited to consider Lebanon. It begins from this beautiful reading from Isaiah. For a very little while, Lebanon shall be changed into an orchard, and the orchard be regarded as a forest. Certainly the people of Lebanon need enormous amount of hope. Basically and fundamentally a Christian country, though they've been torn apart by civil strife over the last number of years. Lebanon, and especially Beirut, was noted as the Paris of the Middle East at one time. The explosion that flattened so much of Beirut is certainly taking away from the spirit of a beautiful city that has been so welcoming to so many. But it is hope that we find in today's first reading, the reading about Lebanon becoming an orchard and a forest. And going forward into the gospel reading, we find that despite the challenges that face us, that we might be blinded by the darkness that we see in our world, we find Jesus giving us reason to hope. He speaks of curing a blind man who comes, Son of David, have pity on us. And he touched their eyes and he said, let it be done for you according to your faith. And their eyes were opened. I think the Advent season is a time when we are called to open our eyes. These pictures from Lebanon invite us to open our eyes to the suffering that goes beyond the coronavirus, the suffering that is evident throughout the world. In fact, as I read the story of Pope Francis and his latest book, he's telling us that our future should be one in which we have our eyes open to recognize the struggle that so many people have, to recognize that there is a virus of poverty, there is a virus of homelessness, a poverty and a virus which has afflicted countless people. Think of the 300,000 people that are left homeless in Beirut, how they've been crowded together, and on top of all of that, the coronavirus, where they have no way to keep social distancing, many of them no running water. The challenges are great. And if we're invited to open our eyes in faith, to recognize that even in this darkness, God will give us light, certainly the blindness that perhaps we in this country can experience and that Pope Francis points out is the blindness of indifference. We see so much on the news. We hear today that this is yesterday was the worst day yet for the pandemic. How do we keep our eyes open? How do we prevent ourselves to becoming indifferent or numb to what it is that we see? Pope Francis, in writing about indifference in his latest book, Let Us Dream, reminds us that there's an expression both in Spanish and in Italian that he calls so whatism. So whatism enables us to get through life not worrying about what we see, how we're ever going to relax in the midst of difficult times. And this attitude of so whatism ends up armor plating the soul, he says. That is, indifference bulletproofs it, so that certain things just bounce off. One of the dangers of this indifference is that it can become normal, silently seeping into our lifestyles and value judgments. He says we cannot get used to indifference. Let us not get used to seeing the suffering in Beirut or in our own country, in our coronavirus, without feeling the need to cry out to God in prayer and the need to extend a hand as much as we are able to those in need. Indifference is a virus that runs much deeper into the human heart than does the coronavirus. May God give us vision and sight and deliver us from the virus of indifference. May God bless you and your loved ones on this Friday of the first week of Advent.